We're going to take a look at this box and look at the various components of it. I'm going to start with, I'm just going to lift out the plexiglass because it'll make it easier to start lifting things out and seeing things. So the first thing I'm just going to talk to is the imagery itself. The imagery only happened because the fact that I have a husband who's willing to paddle around in a canoe with me while I take pictures, because this is actually a composite of a lot of different pieces on a certain lake. And in order to get the photograph, it required me to kind of move around, trying to keep a certain distance away from certain elements, and then taking the pictures so that it would all appear to be as if it was one thing, but in fact it doesn't really exist like this. So that's one example of playing with others. The other example with this image is the fact that the print itself is actually semi-transparent, and I'll show the back side of it. So it's been encased in encaustic on both sides, and that only happened for two reasons. Partly is because I had a play date that I did with another artist, and she allowed me to use her encaustics, and I had taken along some old prints, and I discovered a really interesting thing, that if you really soak the paper with encaustic, that it became semi-transparent. At the time when I was thinking of this, I had thought of using different kinds of materials, but then when I came across this technique later on, then when I was experimenting, I kind of had an aha moment of this is how I need to approach this. She was also very generous in that she let me borrow her equipment to do it, so I didn't have to go through the expense of buying equipment in order to apply the encaustic. So the next component I'm going to talk about is this layer that has plexiglass in it and the lights that are associated with it. So there's these kind of footlights that are here, and there's this layer of plexiglass. Now this is because I needed to have get light in between the two layers of the print, and I needed it to be in this section. So it's kind of like, well, how do you get light there if you have something that's transparent, and especially in this really compact box? So there was no way of being able to put lights on the side, and even at that it would have kind of missed the middle area. So this happened because in a conversation with another artist named Ralph Nevins, he suggested that there was these kind of things that people build with LEDs and laser cut plexiglass. They're actually clocks that are made like that. So what I did is I didn't have a laser cutter. Basically what happens is light hits in the edge, the LED light goes through the edge of the plexiglass here, and then it comes up through the plexiglass, and then here I'll show it to you, just pull it up so you can actually see the scores, and they refract off of these deep scored lines. Yeah, I just used a plexiglass cutter, and I scored really super deep lines, and so it just allows the light to get redirected in this area, and then just by programming these lights in different kinds of sequences, it allows the light to appear here and kind of as if it's dancing. The other bit of that too was the programmation of that oscillation was a nice little bit of math that my husband was able to lend to the project. So again, you can just see how that area, how that's deep those scores are. Put that over there because it's sticky. So the next couple of layers here is that in my experiments that I did, this was I decided, I realized that I needed to have 2 layers of the same imagery, because if I just had one, it actually was not, the areas that needed to be solid were not solid enough. And so that came about because of my experiments, that I realized that that was one component I needed to do. And again, it's cut away, but again, it is, the print itself has been encased in caustic. The other component here is, I'm going to just show it from the other side, is there is a piece of diffusion gel. This came out of my prior knowledge from having worked in the theater. So this layer is a little bit of slight craziness. This only happened because of my experiments that I was doing, but it was an unplanned part of the experiment. The window that I was doing my experiment on is a piece of frosted glass, sort of what they call chip glass. And when I started to put these things together, the light wasn't behaving the same way. And I realized part of that was because I needed this kind of effect of the way the chip glass works. And so I was able to find a piece of, it's kind of a MacTac, it's for applying on your bathroom window, that I could buy, that I could apply to it, the plexiglass. And so then this is the arrangement of the LEDs. Now the LEDs, working with LEDs, and then I'll show you the other components that go with it. Those were inspired by the work of Ralph Nevins, with his some of the artwork that he does, where he has programmation of Arduinos with LEDs. And I'd also seen it on another show. I saw some artwork that was done with it, and I was just like, oh, I really like this, the idea that you can redirect light. It feels like theater to me. So I'll just take out those components so then you can see the back parts of this. So I'm going to have to do this in a couple of different shots because of the piece of reflective material that's there. I just wanted to talk a little bit to the arrangement of the lights here. They're just really simply, I mean, I use this reflective mylar card that I was able to buy at the art store. But the back side and just the arrangement of it is just on a piece of mat board that I saw there was a forum there's a group of people who do a lot of LED Christmas lighting, and there was some of the forums showed how you could just take this kind of LED lighting, which it's pre-wired, and you could string it into a configuration, a design, and yeah, and so that was just from a forum. I'm just gonna undo the back there, this part here. I don't know if I can. Yeah. I'm gonna have to just set it aside like this. Still hooked up. So the last components that are in this box that I'm going to talk about is this is the Arduino, which is a microprocessor. It has to be programmed from a computer plugged into it, but then once it has its program installed in it, it runs independently. So the idea of using the Arduinos came from Ralph as the microprocessor to use. And so what I did in order to learn this is I actually bought myself a kit which had a bunch of mini projects and a bunch of different components in it. And over a series of months, I taught myself how to use it, how to program them, and I don't still know all of this that it has to do with programming, but I learned enough to get partway through this project, and also how to work with these sensors. And then some of the wiring happened because of the forums that I looked at, but also some of it happened because of advice from the fellows over at one of the electronics stores in town. It was Active Tech, and they're now part of Gervais Electronics. They were able to help me out with that. Now the final programming of this Arduino, the programming itself, happened actually because it was a collaboration with my husband Mark. The original programming that I did when I started it, I actually ran out of memory very soon, and I crashed one of my, not this one, because I actually kind of fizzled it. So yeah, this is a new one in here. So, but my husband, he's a C++ programmer, and it involved a little bit more complex programming than I was able to figure out on my own. But I designed all of the light elements, like the different sequences. That was my ideas. I wanted to run it in a continuous sequence, a loop, and it wasn't as straightforward as that it didn't have enough memory to do that. But yeah, those are the components of the box and how they all came together because of different people.